The UFC is totally f***ed if they don't make these changes to their business model and the sport in the next couple years. Today, we're going to talk about 10 changes that I want to see in the UFC. I'm Wyatt, and this is Fight Society. All right, guys, before we get into the video, please make sure to like, subscribe, drop a comment down below, all that good YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. Also, if you want to support the channel further and you want access to bonus content, click the link in the description down below or the join button on our channel homepage to become a channel member today. Thank you very much. Back to the video. Dana White has made some questionable decisions surrounding the UFC, but most of his decisions have been on the money, okay? He's grown the biggest monster in combat sports ever, okay? The most ability to do repeat business, pay fighters the most, turn the lights on tomorrow night too. That's the thing. Too many boxing promotions, some MMA promotions. It's a going out of business sale every single card, and they hope that they can squeeze every penny out of it, and they don't care about the next card, the next event, whatever. Where's this fighter going to fight next? All that stuff. The UFC makes business moves that allow for them to maintain over the course of multiple years and decades. And that's why they're so successful while other organizations have died out. Now, with that said, there are some changes that I would like to see to the UFC, and today we're going to go over them. The first change that I'd like to see to the UFC is bigger penalties for weight misses. We just see it far too often. It affects big fights. It affects up-and-coming fights like we just saw at UFC 310 between Brian Battle and Randy Brown. I would say that there's things to fix about judging too, but I think in some ways that's kind of a lost cause. The weight missing, they can just change the percentage of the purse. Take 80% of the guy's purse. He'll make weight for sure. Because what happens is you have guys, they miss weight in these fights that are on their come up to ranked fighters, all that stuff. They'll let that 20% go. They'll let it go. They don't care, because if they get this win and keep working towards a championship, that 20% that they lost for the sake of winning this fight will pay itself back with wins and bigger contracts as time goes on. But it's not fair. Randy Brown took the fight. He had already cut weight. He needed to get paid. You know, he fights for a living. Brian Battle comes in 5 pounds overweight. Brian Battle's one of my favorite fighters, but super unprofessional in this circumstance. Comes in overweight and also gets a controversial split decision. Brian Battle doesn't have anything to do with what the judges do, but it is just an overall not such a fair shake for Randy Brown. Whereas if Brian Battle's penalty for missing weight there was 70%, 80%, he probably wouldn't have taken the fight in the first place if he couldn't have made weight. Because when he said it was the most I ever had to cut, it was the shortest notice I ever had for a fight, all that stuff, it sounds like he was planning on missing weight from the start. And he came into fight week with 25 pounds to cut. Randy Brown came in with like 19 pounds to cut. But he came into fight week at like 196 pounds, and he only made it down to 175. So I think there needs to be much stiffer penalties for weight missing just to deter it more. I don't want fighters to lose out on pay, but I don't want fighters' careers getting affected because some guy like games the system where he's like, yo, I'm on a 12-12 contract right now. I'll let 3K go. I'll let 4K go. You know, I'll let a little bit of that go so that I can get a win here, work towards a ranking, work towards a new contract, make more money later on. That's what guys do. So I think there needs to be stiffer penalties for sure. Moving on from there, the next change that I want to see in the UFC is completely get rid of Tough. It's a dated concept. For those of you that don't know Tough, it's the Ultimate Fighter. It's a reality show that they do on ESPN Plus now and on ESPN. It actually, they say, saved the company at one point with the first season and the Stephan Bonner-Forrest Griffin fight that capped off season 1. They say that saved the promotion at the time, but that was at a time where like all those like MTV reality shows and things like that, where everyone's locked in a house together, which they still do. I'm not going to act like Love Island and all that stuff doesn't exist right now, and The Bachelorette and all these dumb shit. But like for this concept, fighting, Tough doesn't match up with it. And I don't think there's enough personalities anymore. I think it's a little too corporate. It's just like, oh, we're getting haircuts today. Oh, we're doing kicks with Wonder Boy. There's no like, there isn't really much of that like, we're getting drunk and fist fighting outside by the pool like it used to be, like when Tony Ferguson, Nate Diaz, all those guys. that was like real unhinged shit, but they can't show that stuff on ESPN anymore. So, or they can't show it on ESPN at all. So that now that UFC is with ESPN, they have to knock that off. And I think that that compromises the entertainment of the show. The fights are good. It still produces good talent, but we see some better guys coming off Contender Series. And so it's kind of like my theory, the same, like Power Slap, Ultimate Fighter. I think they're just tax write-offs because they're losses, in my opinion, for the UFC. I have no evidence to support that. That's just my opinion, UFC legal department. Personally, I think that they're just losses that they can write off. They're little passion projects for Dana. Like, it's a nostalgic thing for Tough. It's a passion project for Power Slap. I'll make a separate video about that stuff, but that's what I think. Tough needs to go. Moving on from there, the next change I want to see in the UFC is, this doesn't need to be like a written in stone rule, but just some sort of like expectation or standard of number of title defenses before you start talking about double champ status. Like, even if they just say you got to defend the belt twice before you talk about going up in weight to become a double champ, something like that. Even if it's not like a written rule or a policy, just kind of like shut the fuck up. Stop talking about Ilia Topuria. Stop talking about Charles Oliveira. You're the champ at 145. We're about to book you against Volkanovski for the second time. You're talking about a lightweight that's not the champ anymore. And same thing, you have Dricus du Plessis. Before he even wins the belt, he's like, yeah, I'm going to go fight Alex Pereira at 205. It's like, guys, the original idea, of course, the first simultaneous champ, you know, was Conor, and he had 0 defenses. But the idea of it, in my opinion, should be you cleared out your division. There's nobody left. You've proven that you're too good for this weight class. Move up. That's the way I view it. So I just think that when you have people looking for double champ opportunities with 0 title defenses, 1 title defense, and a slew of contenders that are ready to fight, you have just logjam divisions, stalling out divisions. People start to lose interest in the division. People start to lose like their favoritism towards a champ if they like them and stuff like that. That's why I think they need to have like, I don't know, like 2 defenses or something like that, even just like as an unwritten rule before they book somebody. Like, if Dana would just say it in a post-fight press conference, most fighters would just shut the fuck up about it. So that's why I think they should do some sort of like minimum number of title defenses before you can become a double champ. The next change that I want to see to the UFC is more divisions. I made a video about specifically this probably a year ago at this point. But I think the UFC should have a weight class every 10 pounds up to 205, and then have a cruiserweight and then push heavyweight up so that the big heavyweights don't have to cut weight. And I think what the UFC's weight classes should be is, obviously for women, you have straw weight. They've even talked about atom weight. So that would be 105, then 115 for straw weight. And then you'd have, for men, you'd have 125 flyweight, and then that's obviously for women as well. And then bantamweight 135, you have that for men and women. And then after that, you have just men's divisions, and you have 145 featherweight, 155 lightweight, 165 like super lightweight, something like that. Bump welterweight up to 175. Do middleweight at 185, super middleweight at 195. Light heavyweight at 205, cruiserweight at like 225, and then you make heavyweight like 280, something like that. Just like give more opportunities. We have 700 fighters, okay? This is an excuse for them to put more title fights on pay-per-views. That's what I think. I think that there's a lot of guys that are like too small for light heavyweight, but have to cut too much weight for 85, so they either have to be undersized at 205 or depleted. Same thing between lightweight and welterweight. That's why I personally think that there should be more weight classes. And it just gives them excuses for more title fights. Like, Dana, you're making pay-per-views $80. You have 700 fighters. And Dana's not making them $80. It's ESPN, to be fair. More divisions, dude. I mean, that'll be more fun. PFL's going to fold in like 3 years. Just sign those guys. Boom. Add like 4 divisions. Make a women's featherweight and throw all of them in there. Throw Pacheco and fucking Cyborg back in the UFC. That'd be funny. But that's why I think the UFC needs more divisions. Moving on from there, the next thing that the UFC needs to change, and I feel like that I am not alone at all in this opinion, we got to stop using the Apex, or at least drastically cut back on the Apex, because you have fans that want to buy tickets that aren't $600 and $700. If you want to go to a UFC pay-per-view these days and you don't want to sit all the way up in the nosebleeds, it's going to be $700. And if it's a Conor card, it's going to be $2,000 to sit in the nosebleeds. Like, that's fine. The pay-per-views, that's a rich man's club, okay? LA, Miami, Vegas, New York, that's a rich man's club. You're not just Joe Blow, blue-collar guy buying a $2,500 ticket. It's just not feasible. But what I have seen, because I look at the ticket prices, when they do Louisville, when they do, not San Antonio, when they do St. Louis, when they do Jacksonville, like these fight nights and shit, you can get a fairly good ticket for $100. Show UFC fans that can't afford to spend, I don't know, 10% or 5% of their yearly salary on one UFC event, more fight nights in less major cities, obviously not Timbuktu, obviously not Hesperia, California, like where there's nothing going on. But I mean like San Diego, San Antonio, the middle of the country, do Columbus, Ohio, Lansing, Michigan. You have all these places that have basketball arenas for their college team. Austin, Texas, they did as well. Austin, Texas, when Beneil Dariush got KO'd by Arman Sarukian, that was at UT Austin. There's so many like basketball-sized arenas. Dana says he likes doing arenas, not stadiums. Those like 15 to 25,000 seat arenas, there's a million of them out there. You put on 45 events a year. Try to not use the Apex for more than 5 or 6 of them, you know? Like get out there and have affordable fans. Like, do you want fans at your events or not? There's money to be made there. I understand the overhead's low at the Apex. It's all there for you, but honestly, like you're just doing the fans a disservice. The fans stayed loyal through COVID while you provided the only entertainment in most sports. The fans support you with $80 pay-per-views and all this stuff. They shell out the money for the tickets. There's some people that can't afford to do that. I remember part of like the best parts of growing up was going to USC football games with my parents, going to Dodger games with my dad, and all these different things. It's like that is something that you could make part of fighting. There's so many people that are like my age. I'm 26. There's so many people that are my age that fight, are into fighting, used to fight, follow MMA. If you can make it affordable to where a guy can be like, oh yeah, I know it's crazy because it's a cage fight, but oh yeah, my dad used to take me to the UFC fights. You know, my dad used to take me to the UFC fights and stuff. And now I became a fighter. Like how many football players, basketball players, baseball players, hockey players, my dad used to take me to Raiders games. My dad used to take me to Lakers games and that blah, blah, blah. That got me into it. I just feel like there's more fan base to tap into. They don't have to PG babyface turn like WWE did and go completely like not base, because I love that the UFC is. But I'm just saying, even if you throw that whole fucking childhood memories thing aside, you got the boys that don't make over 100, 150 grand, whatever, that want to come drink some beers and watch some fights. Give us a San Antonio, give us a Phoenix, Arizona, make it where you can go somewhere and spend $80 on the ticket, $110 on the ticket, and you're not shelling out $1,000+ for the whole day. So anyway, sorry, that one was long, but that's what I think. We got to no more Apex events or severely cut back. Moving on from there, same thing, a little bit of a change to the business model like the last one. Got to move on from the pay-per-view model eventually. I think the UFC needs to move on from the $80 pay-per-views. I think they need at some point to go to like, I mean, I could see them doing Netflix or something like that, but I think the UFC could do like a UFC network like WWE did. They did a WWE network at one point. I don't think it worked out, but you could do some sort of, do it as a partnership, like some sort of membership thing where people pay like $50 a month. You get fight nights, pay-per-views, Fight Pass invitationals, all the grappling stuff they do. And I think that makes a lot more sense because when you have $80 pay-per-views, sometimes twice a month, they just made ESPN Plus $15 a month. And it just recently went from $7 to $10, and now it's $14.99. And then you also have the pay-per-views went from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80. That's where we're at now. And they go, ooh, $10 off if you buy it early, stuff like that. People aren't going to pay for that shit anyway. Some people are broke. They're not paying for that shit. Like for me, I'm lucky. It's a business. It's a tax write-off because this is a business for me. But for the most part, people can't afford those pay-per-views. We keep talking about the pirated streams, and Dana's like, yeah, we're going to get these guys. Why don't you just make it more affordable to watch? Entice the viewer into watching and paying, you know, incentivize them into paying, you know, people pay, and then have more money go to the fighters too. But that's fighter pay is a whole nother topic. I'm not going to talk about fighter pay in this video, but I think you move on from the pay-per-view model, do something where you pay $50 a month, $50 a month, all the fight nights, all the pay-per-views, some sort of like, it's all on a dashboard, almost like your YouTube homepage, and you can fucking log in and you're like, oh, dang, okay, I got all the embeddeds for this week. I got, oh, there's some press conferences here. And then here's the fight library. Here's the Pride stuff. Here's the Strikeforce stuff. All the stuff that I feel like watching, the old UFC stuff. That's what I think they should do. And they can do it on Fight Pass. They have Fight Pass. So speaking of Fight Pass and other promotions, my next two have to do with this same type of thing. Feature other combat sports on Fight Pass. I know Dana's talked about Zuffa boxing. I know Dana's talked about getting involved in boxing. I know he did Power Slap. But maybe even like a, you know, they're doing this Fight Pass invitational thing. They just signed Mikey Musumeci to an exclusive contract, which is actually really cool. And they're really dipping their toes into grappling. There's somebody like him, they're shelling out like good money for Mikey Musumeci. He's very well known, you know, and they've had people like Gordon Ryan, Nicky Rodriguez appear on Fight Pass invitationals, Bo Nickel even. I think they should just do Fight Pass. You have the UFC, and this is a major overhaul. I don't want to make it sound like it's just nothing, but you do like a Fight Pass that's like an app, like the ESPN Plus app on my phone, or going onto YouTube or some shit like that. And you have like UFC, and then you have Fight Pass grappling, Fight Pass boxing, or whatever you want to call it. I don't care. All of it on one platform. Make it like $50 a month, or like, oh, like for $50 a month. You could even do it in tiers. For $50 a month, you get the MMA. You get UFC fights, pay-per-views, whatever. And then you could watch Zuffa boxing for an extra $10 a month. You could watch the grappling for an extra $10 a month. Stuff like that. Like, I think that there's a way to entice these people that typically don't want to pay for sports or for combat sports to watch, at least in some way, because it's like, it's going to for sure bring someone. It's just a matter of if you think the effort and expenses of remodeling this whole thing are worth it. So anyways, I think they need to expand other combat sports. That's what they need to do on Fight Pass. Boxing, grappling. They're already doing it in grappling. It'd be cool to see like a Muay Thai or a kickboxing. Like, that's what they should use the Apex for, dude. Oh my God. But anyways, moving on from there, I think that there needs to be more structure in MMA, the UFC. I think they got to expand Contender Series. I think it needs to be like a feeder system, kind of like Cage Warriors or LFA. I don't think that Contender Series is like perfect. They do produce a lot of good talent. Like, that's why I think Contender Series should be like a year-round thing. Once a week, 5 fights. Not everybody has to get signed. You can bring guys back multiple times, 5, 6, 7 times. It's like minor league UFC, as opposed to like, here we go, or who's getting a contract tonight? Like, just put on cards and sign guys as you see fit. It's almost like minor league baseball. You don't have to go at the end of every minor league game, go, ooh, this guy's getting moved up to AAA, this guy's going to the majors, stuff like that. You just put on games, and when you see fit, you call somebody up. That sounds like a good plan to me. And it gives more actual legit fight promotion, media, medical supervision, officiants, and all that on regional level fighters. Like, you don't even have to put like the UFC. It doesn't have to be UFC. It can be like Dana White's Contender Series, because it is like a Contender Series. Expand that, and then you have people can fight 10 times. You maybe, and I'm not saying dip into amateurs, but like they can fight like 10 times. They can fight 5 times. Then you go, oh wow, this guy's 9-0. Let's sign him to the UFC instead of just fighting these bums in like Brave FC or something. And so I think that, especially as these smaller promotions diminish, like One Championship, PFL, I made a video about that last week, that they have to expand like some sort of almost minor league system for MMA for the UFC. Moving on from there, the next thing that I think the UFC needs to do is they need to change their media in some ways. I think their fight promotion is getting very corporate. And I think they need to they did it with Rogan when he sat down with DC. We see it in boxing a lot these days. I think they need to do face-offs with like a Rogan's too busy, but like a Rogan or an Anik or a Michael Bisping or a DC, somebody like that, that's sitting there between the fighters. And they did it with Darren Till and Masvidal, I think, but it would just be so much more fun if they did stuff like that. I feel like it's just, they go, okay, embedded, countdown, Instagram post with Nina Drama. Like, let's switch it up. Let's stop making it so corporate. Like, let's make this, it's fighting. It doesn't have to be like every other boring sport. Like, make it fun. Do these face-offs. They're about to go fight each other. Have them sit in a room with DC in the middle, or John Anik or something like that, you know? I know that those guys, somebody like John Anik would love to do that, you know? And then the very last thing that I think the UFC could do, and they do this in some ways with the Artist Series posters, but I feel like they could just, same thing, so corporate. They could get more creative with the posters. If you've ever seen Ryzen, they do really out there posters that almost don't look like they're for an MMA event at all. I'm not saying they have to go that far, but it's just more creative, like comic book, superhero type of, you know, animations or anime looking stuff. Just the type of stuff they do for the Artist Series is really cool. And I wish they'd do stuff like that and push them more, because they kind of just throw them on IG and go, oh, here's the Artist Series, you know? where I think what they really should be doing is making that the poster. I mean, just enough with like everything's got to be so fucking cut and dry corporate with the UFC these days with ESPN. And so I think that they could just get more creative with the posters, use the artist series ones as the official. And so overall, that's my 10 changes to the UFC. Bigger weight miss penalties, get rid of tough, minimum number of title defenses before double champ, more divisions or more weight classes, no more Apex events, move on from the pay-per-view model, embrace other combat sports on Fight Pass, expand like a minor league system with Contender series, face-off interviews like boxing and stuff, and like they did with DC and Jones with Rogan there. And then better posters. They could get more creative. So, and then one little thing that would be cool is if they would just work with MMA YouTube more, bro. I'm an MMA YouTuber myself, so I'm biased about this, but I don't give a rat's ass about Nina Drama. I'd rather see, and look, I've seen Nina Drama's comments. Some of you guys are simping hard in her comments, but I'm just saying, people that actually know how to talk about the sport, the same way if you watch NFL these days. I was just watching freaking NFL the other night. I went on the ESPN app and they give you the regular broadcast and then you can do the Simpsons broadcast, or you can watch the Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Bill Belichick show. Have your boy, MMA Guru and Lucas, not like I'm a huge MMA YouTuber or anything, but have MMA Guru, Lucas Tracy, hopefully myself if I was big enough, on there and like talk about the fights. They did Helwani Vision for the Francis fight for PFL, where you have Jake Paul call in for a fight. Tim Welch called in for a fight. That stuff's fun. They should do that. Offer different. They could be more creative, and they're not going to do it. But that's my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think down below. What changes do you want to see to the UFC? Thanks for watching this video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. If you want access to bonus content, become a channel member today by clicking the join button on our channel homepage or the link down below this video. If you're interested in some non-MMA content from me, go check out my podcast, What's Up Bro, with Wyatt and Bo, in the link down below. Go watch this suggested video, and I'll see you next time.